The Ethical Fashion Room podcast is about exploring sustainability and ethical production from an inside industry perspective. Come and join us as we share insights and knowledge so you can make an informed decision when creating your sustainable label. Meet our host, Edwina Huang.
Welcome to our relaunch EFR episode. Today, we welcome our special guest, Head of Marketing and Partnership from Peppermint magazine, Roxanne Houghton. Roxanne previously started her own brand, Atelier Attica, which leads her way into sustainable fashion industry. She's one of the leading sustainable social influencer figure in Australia. Please welcome Roxanne.
You've been in the industry for quite some time right now, and I really would love to learn from you. Like, why are you in this industry? Like, what brings you here? Like, you have amazing skills with your marketings. What brings you to this industry?
I think the thing, Edwina, as I'm sure you know, about sustainable fashion industry is it's a really exciting place to be. I think there's been so much change, and the nature of fashion is that it's all about creativity, it's about innovation, it's about making us feel bigger and better than ourselves. And so if you're looking at social change, environmental change, the fashion industry is a really exciting place to be. My background, I've worked in politics in the past, so I've always liked being part of something bigger than myself, I guess. I love the sense of community that we have in the sustainable fashion industry. I'm very interested personally in development, looking at, labour conditions and so on and so forth with women in developing countries. So that's my particular area of interest, I suppose.
Right.
I guess I was working I was a political researcher, and honestly I was finding that environment quite dry, and we'll talk about this later, but I started up my social impact fashion brand, and I did that on the side, and then I approached Peppermint magazine about having my pieces appearing in the magazine, and I'd done some giveaways with them, and then an ad came up for a marketing partnerships role at Peppermint, and it was just an absolute perfect segue for me to get into that. And if I hadn't started my sideline business, I wouldn't have ever got the job at Peppermint, because my work could be fairly dry policy stuff, and I could write and I could do research and do PR, and I understood media. I'd started working in the media a long time ago, but it was really beautiful symbiosis where doing something that I love, that I was passionate about, actually led me to work that gave me more passion and more of a sense of meaning. So I've been at Peppermint for about 3 years, and I started my brand for about 5 years. But the causes and the things that I'm interested in are things that I've been working in, I suppose, in a different area for a really long time.
Right. So essentially your brand became your stepping stone into this industry.
Exactly, that's right, yeah.
So what do you think about the industry has evolved since you have started? Obviously, back in Australia, sustainable fashion, this topic of circularity, I remember 5 years ago, there's barely anyone know about what recycled polyester is when we started. So how do you think it has evolved so far, from the Australian standpoint and international standpoint?
There was no one really talking about sustainability in fashion at all. And even when I started my business 5 years ago, I would say it was still pretty much at the cusp. And I agree with you, it's really come about really fast. And now, every mainstream media publication worth their salt is talking about sustainability. Claire Press, I think, as you know, Claire, she's incredible, very groundbreaking. And she was writing for Marie Claire and writing about sustainability long before she became appointed Vogue's first sustainability editor. So it's happened very quickly. Obviously, Rana Plaza, I think everyone would agree, with Fashion Revolution, was probably the main impetus in bringing some of the really key issues to people's attention, and that sense of discomfort around people are hurting and the environment's really hurting from our fashion choices.
So what resonates with you about connecting circularity or sustainable fashion together with your media and social influencing skills and your marketing and politics backgrounds? What actually resonates you?
I think what resonates in the sense is the fact that you and I live in the sustainable fashion world, and so we're constantly hearing about new ideas. I'm not sure if resonating is the right word, but you and I are constantly knowing about things in the industry. So we might know that a big brand has had some problem with their labour supply chain or something. And I think this is not so much about circularity, I suppose, but I think the ability for us to distill knowledge about things that we just take for granted. We know about circularity. It's very much part of our daily discourse. But for most people, honestly, I don't know that they're still quite there yet. Most people go to the shop and they buy an item based on whether it costs the amount of money that they can afford, whether it looks good on them, whether it feels good on them. So I think we need to be mindful of the fact that we still do live in a bubble, and what we take for granted as our base of knowledge and understanding about sustainability and circularity, most people don't, or to the extent that they do, not to the same depth. And it's not through lack of care, it's just simply because, they have other competing priorities. So I think, our ability to distill information and get it out there is what our role is in this industry.
Yeah. So if that's the case, bring back into the industry itself, do you think it's even realistic to incorporate sustainable fashion or sustainability into as a part of the fast fashion? Do you even think it's realistic about it?
Yes and no. Obviously, the big brands like H&M and Zara are so massive. They have so much power based on the amount of people that they employ and the number of people that they impact in terms of their consumers and the people that are there, buying from them. So they have tremendous ability to move the conversation, and they're doing some really good things. They both are committed to circularity in their materials by 2025, I believe. Zara has they both have big commitments to drop back programs. Take your clothes back if you don't wear them. Take them back to either of those shops, and they'll recycle them, or they'll send them off to Red Cross, or they'll refurbish them, or what have you. They're all very big players in Copenhagen Fashion Summit, as you know, and so their ability to drive change, to drive awareness, is huge. Now, the flip side, of course, to that is that they are businesses that are motivated by profit. So while they are, producing 13 or 14 collections a year, they may know their supply chain, and they may know that, everyone that makes their garments, hopefully, are being paid well. I'm not sure that is the case too. But the reality is, while they're pushing for so many collections, they don't own the process, they don't own the means of production. So that factory worker in Bangladesh is going to put pressure on his staff to try and produce enough garments so that he doesn't miss out on his deadline with these big companies and not get their business again. So while, yes, they are incredibly important in changing the dialogue and changing the way everyone else does business, and there's clearly a lot of innovation that they're spearheading because they're setting up foundations, and again, they have the money. There is always going to be an inherent tension between, your motivation isn't actually about, your mission isn't about creating a better work environment. Your actual mission is to create shareholder value and to make money. So, yes, those two can live together, but there's always going to be a little bit of an uneasy tension, So, so long as we're pushing people to buy new products on a really regular basis, even with the best will in the world and with the most recyclable products, there's still going to be an impact. At the moment, it's just not possible to have that volume of production and not to have some negative impact. It's just not possible, I don't believe. But I think that's where a lot of people shop. So, I would never dismiss the impact of fast fashion in being able to reach people and change their minds. So I think they're really important. Are they going to be, they're also, though, going to be a little bit part of the problem.
Yeah.
So I think
especially this year, when the pandemic hits, what we see in the industry is that a lot of people are not getting paid. And that also hits the big time, which is one of the big topic in the Copenhagen Fashion Summit as well. So you are totally spot on. But how about like the past couple of years, after the after the Plaza incident, what do you see more changes happen?
Well, I think clearly it's all gone mainstream. I mean, as I said, you wouldn't find a single fashion publication that's not talking about sustainability in fashion. I don't think you'd find a single brand that's not talking about sustainability in fashion, or a single major department store. I mean, everyone has to incorporate an element of sustainability into their brand if they want to be taken seriously. It doesn't matter whether that's the core purpose of your brand. It's just, it has to be part of the conversation because that's what consumers are demanding. So, I mean, part of that's a response to, you know, consumer demand. Part of it is just, you know, being a good corporate. Part of it's, I think, because the economic argument probably makes a lot more sense now to people. And I guess it comes around the whole conversation around climate, doesn't it, and environment. I mean, I think, you know, we're not exempt, you know, we're part of the whole bigger movement around recognising that we've got finite resources. We are squandering our opportunity for, you know, great life for our children and our grandchildren. If we don't do something about it pretty much now, then who knows what's going to happen in years to come. So I see it very much as dovetailing into the whole conversation around environment. We're a little bit different in the fashion sector because we not just talk about environment, we also talk about labour conditions and with other things as well. So yeah, I think the mainstreaming of these sort of conversations that used to be very niche is the biggest change I've seen, and that's exciting because that's, you know, we'll see when we can lead to lasting change.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. Another thing that I would appreciate to also discuss, because you have so much experience in this industry, what some of the common mistakes do you actually see brands make when they're trying to using social influencing or advertising their products? What sort of mistake do you see? Like how people can learn from the mistake and then turn it into something that they can use?
Sure. I think there's a couple of things. I mean, one is probably my own mistakes that I made myself with Alexandria Mang was I was so focused on the social mission, and I'm not a designer by background. So I probably focused too much on the social mission and not enough on the product. And I think at the end of the day, no matter how good your mission is, you're selling a product. You're not selling a charity to people. You're selling something that they can use or that's going to make them feel better. But it has to have utility to their life. So I should have, and I see other people doing it, I should have spent more time really honing in on making the product as beautiful and as desirable and as workable as I should have. So the fit was probably not quite right, and I should have done. I was nervous about taking it out to people and saying, hey, what do you think, in case they said, no, it's rubbish, and then I'd have to start all over again. But I really think that brands should be doing that, a lot more testing, going out, talking to your friends, hey, try this on, how does it feel? So I'll just testing a product, because at the end of the day, you're selling something, you're not just selling a drink, and you're asking people to part with their money. So you've got to be sure that they might buy from you once, and that's the thing. I think at the beginning of any business venture, there's so much goodwill around it. You know, all of your friends and your family really want you to succeed. Us in the media want you to succeed because we're excited by new things. So we always get a bit of oh, great, there's something new that we can talk about. So you've got so much goodwill on your side, but you've only got really one chance to get that right. And if you haven't spent enough time in R&D, then you kind of squandered that opportunity. So I think that's one thing that's really important. The other thing I think is, again, to maybe not put enough emphasis on just your own networks, thinking that you have to go and find someone who can amplify your brand. But really, word of mouth, I mean, most of my sales, as I said, happen from people that I know. And you've got to start there and provide a really good customer service to people who know and are going to support you. And then they'll tell other people just naturally. You know, if you're doing something really well, then they'll just talk to other people. I have a friend, Cassandra Harper, who is a beautiful designer. She gets everything made in Cambodia. And, you know, Cassie's stuff is incredible, and she has such a good following, a strong following, because her products are just beautiful. And she talks to her tribe. So it's developing your tribe, and then your tribe will sort of do the work for you. So that's one thing. And I think the other thing is just always making sure that whatever you say, and we sort of touched on this earlier, is making sure your fact's really right. You have to be factually correct in everything you say about your product. So at Peppermint magazine, we fact check everything that goes into the magazine. We'll never take at face value anything that anyone here says, because that trust that you have, that your customers have in you, you can never, once you've broken that again, that's hard to get back. So don't say that you are selling a sustainable textile if it's not. So don't make claims that you can't verify. So I think those would be probably the key things that I've seen and that I've experienced myself.
Yeah. I think that's a key thing that I think brands can definitely pick it up. How about tips? I mean, you know, for new brands that are coming on board, or brands that they are just so small, didn't have so much leverage or money, how can they how can they work with, you know, influencers like yourself in order to create a bigger impact and raise awareness about this sector and what they're doing? How does that work? I mean, you've probably seen a lot of brands in different sizes working with Peppermint magazine. So would you have some recommendations?
I think just find the names of people who work for magazines and just get in touch with them. Tell them the story, because we're all in the media looking for new stories. I mean, we don't have the time or the scope to walk around the street and see who's doing what. So we don't know what people are doing unless they come to us. I had someone come to me recently. Was it a partnership suggestion? No, it was an idea. She wanted to raise some money. It was a great environmental project that she was working on. And she was she wrote to me and she said, oh, look, I know it's not a very good idea, but what do you think? And I was like, I wrote back and said, hey, you know what? You're doing something. You're out there. Your idea is a great idea. Always back yourself. And I think that would be the thing I would say to small brands, is just back yourself and tell people about it. Tell the world about it. Never be apologetic for what you're doing, because you're actually out there doing something that a lot of people might think about. It's really hard. You know, someone said to me, it's really easy to put on the running shoes. It's really hard to actually run the marathon.
Yeah.
And by the time you've got a product that you're bringing to market, you've run a marathon, you know, regardless of how evolved it is. There's so much of the back work. So be proud about it and just tell us, send us emails, and, you know, maybe follow up once. Like, if you haven't replied, then maybe it's not, like, you might need to go away and work on that again, you know, to an extent. Pushing us does actually work, because you're sort of like, okay, right, well, I better reply, or I better look at that, or what have you. So I think just be confident in yourself and your product, and just get it out to as many people as you can. I know someone who, a lot of influencers they will expect that you will pay them to have your product, you know, to wear them. But I know someone who is a jewellery brand, I'm not sure if she's sustainable particularly, but she says, I don't ever pay anyone. I just send them to them. If they wear them, great. If they don't, I don't really care. So I think a large part of your marketing budget has to just be giving stock away, sending it out to people, putting it in an envelope, finding the name of the editor and just sending it to them, because we will always open it. In an office, we're always excited to get something in our office that's you know, new and fresh, and we will always look at it. Now, maybe we don't have time or space, or it's not quite right, but we will always look at everything that comes into us. And I mean, if some magazines have a policy that they won't ever keep anything, they'll give it on to charity, or they'll dispose of it in some way. But I just think, get out there, don't be afraid, just let people know about it. And don't forget your own networks. I think, you know, we are all social influencers in our own way, and if we're doing something positive in our lives, most people in our life really want to support us. So never overlook your own networks, and tell people what you're doing, because people like to be associated with a good story. You know, I love it when my friends are doing incredible, inspiring, amazing things. And I will go to a dinner party and say, oh, I've been talking to this friend, because that's exciting. And, you know, particularly at the moment, we all want to hear those positive stories. So just talk about it.
That's wonderful. Wonderful. At the negative side of sustainable fashion, meaning there's people talking about greenwashing or maybe being really sustainable. Do you think social media sometimes can mislead in a way of portraying what sustainable fashion really is and its own practice? Do you think this can happen? Like, how does that work in social influencing, making sure that, hey, we are saying this you know, company are not doing greenwashing, this is doing greenwashing? Where's the fine line from your perspective?
Yeah, it's hard, isn't it? Because I don't know that it's necessarily intentional. Everyone wants to be part of doing something, being seen to be doing something good, but I think that's where the problem lies, is that there's sometimes a difference between being seen to be doing good and actually doing good. And, you know, we get a little bit, it sometimes grates a little bit when you see someone come to you with a story, oh, hey, we're really great, we're sustainable, you know, we're using recycled plastic in our garments, and you go, oh, that's great, and then you drill down a little bit and you say, well, yeah, but you're getting them made at a factory where they're not unionised, as you say, you know, they're paid poorly, you're sending them out in plastic bags, your products out in plastic bags, and you've just flown them first class from, you know, point of manufacture to point of sale. So, you know, you can't, great, you know, do something good, but that's not the whole of what you're doing. And I feel that, there's such a big difference between the companies that are doing it really, really, really well. And look, that's just part of us as consumers, just educating ourselves. You know, if you look at someone like Outland Denim, for example, who are an exceptional denim company, as you know, they're based in Byron, and they work with Cambodian women, a lot of them who have been rescued from sex slavery, and they have an incredible report that they put out every year. They've just put it out recently, and they really drill down into the social impact and the environmental impact, and it's very, very, very multi-layered. And James and Erica Barker are incredible human beings. You know, it's not just about oh well, we source this fabric from somewhere and that's great. It's every part of their business is sustainable and ethical. So I think, you know, whenever there is a social cause that comes along, perhaps like Black Lives Matter, and people put a black square on their Instagram feed, and then they kind of pat themselves on the back a little bit and say, oh, there we go, I've supported the movement. And, you know, this social change isn't just about one post on Instagram. It's actually a lot deeper than that. And that rolls a little bit, I suppose. But on the other hand, you sort of say, well, but you know what, you are making a difference in some way. You're signalling that you care about these things, and that might encourage other people to care about it, and people in your immediate family. So I don't want to diss anyone that's doing anything that anyone does that is sustainable or ethical, or adding to, you know, or contributing positively to diversity or inclusion is good, but to claim it as something, you know, that's particular to you, or that's, you know, really having an impact, I think we all need to be a little bit wary about that. And that's just, you know, you just drill down and you read the About Me page and you really just start to understand, or good on you, you know, that great.
Yeah, good on you is fantastic.
Brands and things. And, you know, so I think that's just about us as consumers really just educating ourselves and not allowing ourselves just to be taken in by something that appears good on the surface.
Yeah,